Welcome to Desmos PD. I know middle school has kind of worked with some of these classroom activities a little bit before, and I know there's been lots of conversations with high school. I am, you could describe me as a passionate Desmos person. Um, I believe that their tools and the things they have built are transformative for kids and are transformative for our students. They're learning. The visuals are incredible. The graphing calculator is wonderful, and the scientific calculator. The classroom activities are a little bit different. You'll see the graphing calculator embedded in it, but mostly here in the classroom activities, you'll see some different screens and some different looks. Just so you know how this is going to go, we've got three main ideas here. The first being how to find an activity, and then Bethany Syvack's going to run how to facilitate an activity. And then at the end, I'm going to go through how to make a custom activity, the very, very, very basics. You can go really deep with how to make your own activities. And if you go to learn.desmos.com, they have a great tutorial site that will do better than Bethany and I will do right now, with tons and tons and tons of videos about how to do things in other teachers. So I'm going to go through and I'm going to share my screen, and I'm just going to kind of talk through the Desmos classroom activities kind of homepage and some ideas. They've also updated a couple of things since we've moved to this remote learning environment. One of them being feedback to kids. You can send a direct note within the activity specifically to kids, and that's going to be, Bethany's going to go through that. They've also robustly added to their collections. So their collections are really nice. So I'm going to go through a couple of things. So I'm going to go ahead and present. This always takes a second to get up and running. And then it's weird because I won't see your faces and everybody's muted, which means I don't get any feedback, which is always weird from when you're teaching. Bethany, is my presentation window up? Thank you. Okay, so here we are, and will somebody just shout at me if this drops off? This is the homepage. So this is teacher.desmos.com. This is where all of their classroom activities live. They've done a really nice job of adding to this. At the top here, this learn.desmos.com for coronavirus, they have lots of resources for distance learning, and this would be a good place to kind of start if you wanted to. So then if you notice here to the left, there's all sorts of featured connections. So if I come down here to the bottom and hit, or featured collections, and hit view all, it'll update all of their collections. And in the document I have, we have all of these hyperlinked for you, and they have activities by grade and by kind of concept. So if I'm looking through, and like if I'm an Algebra 1 teacher right now, I know we were all getting to quadratic functions. So if I open up quadratic functions, there is so many different activities that teachers can use that are pre-created for everybody. My personal favorite being Match My Parabola. It's a wonderful activity that can be used with students. The really, really nice part is that once you're here, you can, and you find this activity you like, you can come down and you can always preview it. You can see what's going on. You can open up a slide and it'll open as if you're a student. And you can do different things here. It's taking a second to load, but my blue parabola would be y equals x squared plus 3. And then if you check your work, it draws a blue parabola, and I did that right. It's a little bit of pressure with my high school folks on the line here, that I got my math right. But so this is kind of the screen, and you can go through and we can look at, I know I've got a pre-calc teacher on the line. So if we go into the conics, there's a bunch of conics work that kids can do, and building conic sections and all sorts of things. They do have a search bar here. So if I type in linear functions, all sorts of things with linear functions will appear. Now, the one thing I do want to say here is that there's a whole community of people out there building these that aren't by Desmos. Do you see how every one of these has by Desmos? This is one that I personally have bookmarked from a different author, which is why it appears in my own search. But these are only appearing by Desmos. If you like an activity, my suggestion would be if you hit this plus sign, you can add it to a collection. So if I wanted to make a new collection that I wanted to call Algebra 1 Linear, whatever it is, you can create a description, you can share it, you can create it as private, and then you can create a new collection, and then I can add that and hit save, and now that activity is in my Algebra 1 Linear. It also lives in the blue. That's a Desmos created one. So if you go to Google and you type in Desmos linear functions classroom activity, 100 will pop up. I use trusted sources that I see, like this like Lauren Smith. I know I've got several of her activities that I've saved over time. And if you come over here to the left and do collections, this is where any collection you add to yourself lives. So you'll notice that Algebra 1 Linear showed up. I also you can add one of the featured activities to yourself. So like if I like middle school geometry, I can add this collection to my own collection, and then I come back to collections, and it's here. So anytime Desmos edits that, it's there for me. And then one more thing before I pass it off to Bethany or open it for some questions. I know I'm talking fast, but we're trying to do this in about 15 minutes. If I go in to any of these activities and I want to start it with my students, you go ahead and you hit this create class code. And this is how you would start any activity. And I would suggest creating class code for any group of kids you want to add it to. So if I have 3 groups of students that I want this to do, I hit it 3 times. And then as I click on the class code link, it will open up the dashboard, which is where Bethany's going to pick up the conversation. And this is where all of the teacher tools will live. I think because I'm recording and meeting, my internet's being a little slow here. So this isn't going to open, but I know Bethany already has one open to share with you guys. So I'm going to come back here. I'm going to stop sharing. Any questions as we sit right now? Does anybody have anything? I know that was... No. Sure. Yes. So again, I think Polygraph is designed for, I don't think the Polygraph was designed with this in mind. Polygraph is beautiful when you have 20 kids in a room at once. Polygraph would have to have all the kids in the same room. If you don't know what Polygraph is, for the other folks, Polygraph is awesome. It's a guess two style game where like you could have different graphs of things or different shapes. And I would say I would ask questions to narrow down what shape you have. They have dozens and dozens and dozens of them created already. I think the only way to do it is to get all the kids in there at the same time. So I wonder if you're having a Google Meet, instead of just sitting there and saying, what questions do you have? You could run a polygraph for a minute, and you could have the Meet up so every kid is there and every kid could ask questions of you if they needed. But if they were all in the room, kind of virtual room together, that would, I think, be the only way to have that. Bethany, do you have an idea about that? Yeah. There's a couple of questions from the chat. I don't think you can play it against the computer. I do know that like every week Desmos has added new features. It wouldn't shock me if that is like a feature they add, because Polygraph is such a piece of what they do. That's a really good question though. Hmm. Sure. All right, Bethany, do you want to take it and run for a minute? Yes, I can see it. I might be muted. I'm muted. Sorry. Sorry. I couldn't get myself off mute. Hmm. Yep. it'd be something cool to bring up in like a Google Meet if you ran one of these, and then like the next day you could bring this up in a Google Meet and say, look at your friends' 4 responses. Let's talk about it as like a prompt. Um, and this one Bethany ran was a little bit. It wasn't mathy. It was more like, yeah. Mhm. Are there any questions around that? That was a lot. And some of those tools are certainly designed for classroom use, and this is a crazy environment to be in. But um, any questions for Bethany there? All right. Hey Bethany, will you stop? Oh, sorry. Go ahead. It a suggestion I would make is if they sign in with their Google, then as soon as they just go to student.desmos.com, if they've signed in with their Google and sign in, everything they've done before will show up in this little like list below their name, so they could just click back into it. I would probably like put a Schoology message that says, "Hey, if you did the Desmos activity, I went in and put some feedback. Feel free and go back and check on it." There's not an automatic response. I mean, this didn't exist 3 weeks ago, so I think they're kind of. It wouldn't surprise me if that's like the level 2 of this feedback thing, but they got it because teachers wanted it, so they just figured out how to put it in. So, um, mhm. Cool. Alrighty, so creating is to me kind of the like most fun and exciting part because you can turn any activity that you have into a Desmos. Um, and let me show you kind of the tools to click through briefly. Again, this is going to be the most basic version. Um, can you see me, Bethany, sharing? I think it's being slow. There it goes. All right, I see it coming up. All right. So anytime you want to create And I want to say this too, if you've run an activity, it appears in this history. So if you go to history, you can see any activity you've started, and you can go back. I don't run a lot of activities with kids because the teachers I work with do, but you would have a long list of things you've run. So here in custom is where you can make new activities. So these are like some of the ones I've made over the years will appear by here. Um, you can copy and edit any activity. So any Desmos activity, like if you notice here, it says copy of two truths and a lie linears. Desmos made this and then I edited it because I wanted to make it my own. So all you need to do is under these three dots, any activity you see, you can hit copy and edit and you can make it your own, which is really cool. But I'm going to start a blank one. So if I want to do, you could have a new polygraph or a new activity. So if I start a new activity, again, it's going to load here. I have several things that I can use as tools here, and then I'm going to show you. They were just referenced by Alyssa, and that was the starter screens, which is really cool. So this is not wanting to load. Come on. All right, here we go. So we're going to call this Remote Learning PD, if I can spell. So, and then we can start building, and this is your screen. You can add any up to 3 of these tools. So you have graph, table, sketch, media note, input choice, and then under more, there you have their Desmos geometry feature. You can make your own marble slide. If you haven't done a marble slide, go to Desmos and search marble slide. They're incredible. They have one for every function family there is, from linear all the way through periodic functions, which is really fun. So like if I wanted to put a graph and a note, which is where you would give kids instructions, and then a choice, and I could ask them to graph the function y equals 3x minus 1. What do you notice about the y-intercept? And down below, you could have them, you could give a multiple choice or a multiple select, or like I guess I should say, what is the y-intercept? And then kids could go in, and when they would have a preview, they could go in and they could graph that and they could answer the choices. So these are all the different things you have available to you, and you just go through and you make multiple slides, and you can start editing your own activity. Some of the ones you see that are Desmos created, they're using something called computation layer, which is their own coding language, which there's a ton of PD out there about, and I've dabbled in, but it's a little complex for my skill set. But in here, you can make a basic activity that goes really nice. I'm going to go find those starter screens, which were referenced, and show you what those look like. Those are a really nice start to an activity that they've built for you. And again, the loading of the Desmos. I think everything right now is just running slow in life. It's a featured collection. I'm going to try it another way. I have a direct link over here. Oh, I think it worked. Nope. There it goes. So under collections, on the left, one of the collections I think is starter screens. Oh my gosh, come on, Desmos. I'm gonna try the direct link. So, oh, where do they go? There it is, starter screens. Let's see if this will just straight open better. Maybe not. So anyway, these are some starter screens that they have created. They're kind of like there are like template slides that you can use to make that are already built for you that are really nice. If that pops up in a minute, I will switch back over to it. But I guess now would be a good time. Just kind of, we can be done at this point. We went a solid 20 some minutes there. So though our best intentions to keep it to 15 are hard. Does anybody have any questions that they have right now? Bethany and I would love to answer, or I know there are other people that are using this that I'm sure would have answers as well. Oh, and here I just popped in. Here are those screens, and they're really neat. So there's different, like they have different confidence check, lesson wrap ups, different check-ins for kids, and you could take this activity and right here you could just hit copy and edit, and you could use these to start your activity. So that was kind of the last thing I was going to say, is that finally figured it out. So I'm going to go ahead and yes, you could definitely, you can do that. Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and stop talking, give everybody a minute to play. And if you need to leave, please enjoy the rest of your afternoon. It is beautiful, but if you want to stay on,